It has been a decision since last December. He wants to get out of the Middle East in general, not only in Syria. And after last December, they failed somehow to find a mechanism to retreat. Now he's reigniting again this call for withdrawal under Turkish pressure to do an operation. I think the jury is out. Syrian withdrawal is not still planned. We'll have only now 50 troops out of the border, but the remaining, I think it's still a debate within the administration whether it should be a fast withdrawal or more a phased withdrawal depending on what's happening on the ground. I mean, the record so far showed us that it's very hard for Congress to pressure the administration, especially on foreign policy issue. But what they can do is the Republican senators, if they speak more publicly, more against this decision, this might impact Trump, impact his decision. So it's mostly a political decision rather than a process or a hearing or a bureaucratic aspect. I think his own party can basically make a shift at some point. Turkey made it clear from day one the operation will have to establish a safe zone. They will have basically 2 million Syrian refugees back. They already put out a plan, 27 billion to install Syrian refugees. Erdogan is under domestic pressure basically to return those refugees because they became somehow an economic burden between quotation on the Turkish economy. So he's trying to do this, but his own problem now is if he's doing this incursion in spite of the international community or in spite of what the Pentagon is mentioning, it will be hard for him to secure funding. So this process has to be inclusive if it to be successful. Well, they have their back to the corner now. There's little they can do. They put all their bet on the U.S. Now they feel that the U.S. is abandoning them. The little option is to go back to Russia. It's a little bit late for them to do a deal with the Syrian regime. Also, it might be too late now. So there's a little option for them. Till only they can fight at this point. They can try to open channels with Russia, with Syrian regime. They can try to pressure the U.S. to basically not to withdraw more than it should and remain in Syria and their support. So they have their back to the corner now. The Syrian regime also is in a difficult situation now. They were happy somehow that the SDF was near their border now because it was not a combative enemy status. Now if the Turkey and the Free Syrian Army took over, there's potential of conflict. This might have impact on the political process, on how the Syrian regime view this area specifically. So Russia at some point and the Syrian regime would have preferred the SDF, but now if there's an American vacuum, Turkey will have to fill it, and this will change somehow the dynamics. But also it's early to have a say on what will happen. I think the next few weeks will be decisive. It will have an impact on how that Turkey will resurge again as a regional power. It will have a greater stake in what's known now the Syrian cake. Before it was struggling in Idlib, struggling in other parts. Now it will emerge. It will establish a semi-federal area on their borders. Will have more control of the trade, more control of what happens. They have a big say in what happens next in Syria. Unlike the previous period, they were much weaker under Russian and the U.S. pressure. Now they will emerge as a major player. But I doubt that the U.S. and Russia will allow this. They want to remain basically, they have the upper hand on this. And also Iran, we should forget Iran, that they have also their own veto on Turkish operation. So everything gonna change if Turkey emerge the winner in this fight. Definitely whenever there's vacuum, when there's conflict, ISIS can basically pop up. We heard reports, not confirmed yet, that they are trying to do some activities now in Raqqa. There's a big question of what will happen to thousands of prisoners under Kurdish control now. Will they shift to Turkey? It's impossible to do it at this point, but will they break out of jail, regain control? So definitely when there's lack of coordination, when there's a vacuum, ISIS is always ready to use this. And I think all parties involved in this conflict should be aware of this.